Marginal Wisdom by Leslie Takahashi. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, and the rest is false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many hues. We are taught to think in either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, and gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our heart to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center. We welcome you into this space at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon, and we welcome you with all of your identities, all of who you are. You do not have to either or in this space. You can both and. All the hardships, all the sticky spots, all the wonderful places that you love to claim. That is what we welcome here. Our complexity, our wholeness, whether we are broken and powerful. We welcome you into this space on this morning, today. We join as we sing our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit. Somebody reached out this past week and said that this hymn in particular made them feel connected, that they loved this song, and we haven't sung in a while. So Judy Herlbert, who we'll hear from a little bit later, this one's for you. And if there's a song or a hymn that you miss or just would love to hear, reach out. We aim to please. But please rise in body or spirit, or sit on your couch or in your bed or wherever it might be that you find yourself today, and hum along, sing along, or just listen as we sing Gather the Spirit.
Gather to celebrate. Good morning. I'm Barb Cartmel, and I'm happy to serve as your chalice lighter this morning. The reading I've chosen for today's chalice lighting comes from a book titled Water from an Ancient Well, Celtic Spirituality for Modern Life by Kenneth McIntosh. Celtic spirituality and traditions have long appealed to me in the deep and meaningful ways that they encourage me to slow down, be still, and take notice of the moment I am living. This is something I need to be frequently reminded to do, and doing more of these practices has been one of the silver linings of the last year of going through the pandemic. Faithfulness in little things is a big thing, said St. John Chrysostom. Clearly, we don't have to leave our jobs, our families, or join a monastery in order to be immersed in the sacred. Doing the little things, observing sacred days, saying brief prayers throughout the day, lighting a candle, inhaling incense, or touching a reminder with our fingertips can create a canal system of life-giving spiritual water. Without it, our souls may become arid and barren. God longs to irrigate the everyday soil of our lives. All we have to do is clear the channels through which divine grace may flow. May it be so.
Our chalice lighting response today will be led by a dozen UUFCL choir members who gathered virtually last fall. I'm looking forward to gathering really sometime soon, but this morning, please sing along with the UUFCL choir, Spirit of Life.
Good morning. I'm Chalice Sloper, your congregational life facilitator, and I have today's announcements. Firstly, a special welcome to all of us. The opening hymn encouraged us to gather in sympathy now and then, and that's what we're doing here today. And so if you are here for the first or second time, or maybe you are finding your way into our congregation during this time of Zoom meetings, we invite you to fill out a visitor, our virtual visitor information form. We'll get you hooked up with our weekly email, and then you can learn more about what we're doing and find other ways to connect. So a couple of things. One of the other ways that we can meet in sympathy now and then, this Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month for March. And so we'll have a contemplative service. It'll be by Zoom. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. So we invite everyone to come. It's a little more casual. Reverend Scott leads us in a time of being grounded, reflection. Sometimes there's an opportunity to discuss whatever the topic is. And so actually, as we look into March, the theme for the month will be commitment. But today is the last Sunday of beloved community. So that's just some ways of shaping the meaning that we make here together as we gather to build on meaning and celebrating life, finding belonging, serving the spirit of love and justice in our world. One of the ways that we do that, serve the spirit of love and justice, is through our Greater Community collection. Today is the last Sunday of the month, and we'll hear more about it in the service later on. But the nominating team has nominated the CHUSH Fund, which will help to repair water infrastructure at Warm Springs Reservation. So again, we'll learn more about that in detail later in the service. And I just wanted you to know that after the service, every Sunday, we try to send out an email. It has a link to the service if you missed it, or if you want to repeat something that you heard that was really meaningful. And then we also have links there to give if you're wanting to make a donation to your pledge. Or today we'll have also a link to give for the GCC. So just so that you know that when those emails come out, there's a link for giving. There's a link also to the service of the day. So look for that in your email. A week from Wednesday, on March 10th, Amy Brock, our Director of Religious Exploration, has a really useful workshop for parents and caregivers of youth and teens who are experiencing online connections just as we all are. And while families and even youth have been adjusting to all of this internet connection, we want to make sure that the parents and caregivers feel safe and confident about what they're being exposed to online. So Amy invites you to this workshop about online safety, and we ask that you RSVP. There's a link for that in the chat. But some of the topics that will be talked about are digital citizenship, viewing adult content. That can be a really delicate, very difficult topic, but Amy will give you tools for addressing that. And then also some safe communication protocols. So I think it would be a really useful time to get together, and then also just meeting with other parents and caregivers of teens and youth. So a couple more things. We've been seeing some really delightful Chalice lighting videos. A big thank you to all of you who made your debut, and we invite more of you to do exactly the same. We have simple instructions, and it's so delightful to see participation in our services that way. Send me an email and I'll get you hooked up, and we'll get a date for you. Choose a reading that's meaningful, or I can help you find a reading. But anyway, don't be shy. We love these Chalice lighting videos. I do want to say that we're still looking for maybe a couple more women to serve on the Women's Planning Retreat. That's looking forward towards October, but it's not too early to start planning for that. So before I say blessings on your day, I have the pleasure, of course, to passing the mic to Linda Johnson, co-chair of our stewardship team, that's going to be giving us an update about stewardship for this month. And with that, blessings on your day.
Thank you, Chayla, and good morning, everybody. Today is the last Sunday of the February Pledge campaign, so I'm really excited to share with you the results so far. As of today, we've received 183 pledges, totaling $418,883, which is 95% of our $440,000 goal. I want to give a huge, sincere thank you to each of you who has pledged up until today. Your action is a demonstration of hope for our future and a solid commitment to make sure that we are strong in our efforts. We are this close, and I can feel that we can make it. We only have $21,000 to go. 71% of our members have pledged, and 71 members have not. This year, it's going to take every single person to pledge to carry us over the top. Our campaign goal allows us to continue our strong commitment to social justice in our community. It also allows us to enjoy great services like today, worship as a great team, as well as programs for youth, women, and the spiritual growth that are so valued here. Without a pledge from every single member, the things we value are at risk. Please make it a priority today to pledge in whatever amount you believe you can afford. No donation is too small, and we really need it to reach our goal. And today it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our final speaker for stewardship this month is Judy Herlbert. Judy was born, raised, and has lived in the West most of her life. She's been a lifelong educator in a variety of settings and has also owned and operated more than one small business. In 1995, as a single woman, she adopted a daughter from China whom she absolutely adores to this day. Judy moved from Anchorage, Alaska to Bend in 2011 and became a member of our community at UUFCO a year later. As a member for the past 10 years, Judy has enjoyed singing in the choir, organizing hiking, kayaking, and camping with UUFCO groups. She's participated in discussion groups, served as worship host, and served on the board during the move to our new home. And she's also enjoyed handing off the role as team lead for the Sunday Volunteers in 2019. Judy says that she considers UUFCO one of her close families. And now let's hear from Judy.
Good morning. I'm Judy Herlbert, and I was asked to share a little bit of my history at UU. One fall Sunday morning in 2011, when I was new to Bend, I attended a Sunday service at UUFCO in the Old Stone Church. I was looking for a church community to call home. I'd heard about Reverend Heather, who gave dynamite sermons. For the first several months, 3 rituals brought me back week after week. I was new, and I enjoyed singing the children out through the arch amidst other voices. I sang, "As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go." As I sang one Sunday, I realized it was as if I was being sung those words. I found myself singing the song on the way home and at points throughout the remainder of my day. The second ritual was saying our covenant. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I distinctly remember thinking, well, this is pretty straightforward and simple. I can support a community that has this as an agreement with one another. And third, back then we used to say these closing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Until I was together again with the members of this fellowship. All these words drew me back week after week. I'd found the warmth of community. And here it is, almost 10 years later, the same words, a growing sense of community, the opportunity to live UU principles and traditions, and the fire of commitment to those principles by longer-term members of the community continue to bring me back to Sunday service. This is the progressive religious community in Central Oregon that Walt Ford and Gerald McGeary dreamed about many years ago. Our building is the manifestation of those dreams. I pledge because I'm passionate about being part of this community that is learning to live in covenant with one another and the world. I admit living in covenant is an exercise that tests me to the core. My patience, my ability to draw on compassion, my capacity to work together toward good for all, my willingness to make mistakes, forgive myself and others, and then find my way back to covenant. I can't do the work of our covenant of dwelling together in peace, seeking the truth in love, and helping one another all alone. So I invest in a community that states a commitment to live that covenant. I pledge now to sustain the widening circle of work on the faith and dreams of those before me. I invest each year in the present and future being carried out by each of us in our own way here at UUFCO. I give because as I go each week, joy surrounds me. I go in peace, knowing the love is with me always, as I go. I give where I am nurtured because I can only continue to love, give, and offer support to others when I'm nurtured myself. And I am nurtured here at UUFCO. And each year, I pledge because I find what I receive is far greater than my annual financial gift.
Good morning. My name is Amy Brock, and I'm the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth. There is a book that's written for young people called Intersection Allies. We make room for all. It's written by Chelsea Johnson, Latoya Council, and Carolyn Joy. The book is about a group of young friends who are all the same age. And in this book, they talk about how even though they're the same in some ways, every one of them has their own story and their own unique experience in that story. They share that because of this, it's important to make room for everyone, whether that means making space for a wheelchair, offering safe restroom options, respecting clothing and hairstyles that help people feel most like themselves, celebrating the big and small ways that everyone contributes to community, and honoring the ways that friends want to share or not share about their faith and culture. These friends all love each other so much, and they protect one another. And they also protect the water and the lands that they live on. At the end of the story, the author shares that all friends can be allies, no matter how small you might be. Yesterday, as the UU middle schoolers from across the nation gathered online for their first virtual con, someone shared a quote by Coretta Scott King, who once said, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." And that's so true. When we feel compassion for ourselves and for one another, we not only feel sadness or madness or other emotions. When we experience hurt or see someone being hurt, we also want to do something to change that. And sometimes this looks like listening and learning. In fact, listening and learning before trying to help is one of the most important things that we can do. And listening and learning isn't always easy, especially if someone's experience is really different from our own. And yet, if we can stay open to curiosity and wonder, the same curiosity and wonder that we experience when we see things like snowflakes and rainbows and unicorns and perfectly placed sprinkles on strawberry donuts, or whatever makes you feel curiosity and wonder, then we can really start to become a compassionate friend or an ally. The cool thing about becoming a compassionate ally is that it helps everyone. When we work together to make our communities safe and happy for some people, that helps other people be able to find a safe and happy space to be too. And eventually, with a lot of listening and learning and compassion with one another, we can work together to help our communities become really safe and welcoming spaces for all. And so ends our time for all ages today. Let's all say the Children's Covenant. In this place, I am kind. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved.
Thanks, Amy. Amy mentioned that we try to hold compassion for ourselves and compassion for others as well. Like in the story, each of us has our own story, our own experience. And so we invite a space in our Sunday services to share a little bit of our story, our joys and our sorrows. So wherever it is that you are in your story of your life this week, we invite you to share a joy or sorrow in our chat box.
And as you share your joys and sorrows, I will be playing a piece by Foray. I will spare you my French, which is atrocious, but it's called After a Dream. And I'll just, in thinking about today's sermon topic, none of us are free, it really got me, I'm very curious to see where Reverend Scott takes this. But it got me thinking about Beethoven and how he felt so trapped by his inability to hear, and how each one of us have limitations just by being in a physical body in a physical world. and all the things that happen in our lives that seem to entrap us if we allow them. And I think of Beethoven, who wrote the Moonlight Sonata, that movement that I played as a prelude, and how he overcame his limitations. He wrote that right as he was losing his hearing, and how frustrating that must have been, and what he accomplished in spite of that. And that, I think, gives every single one of us the vision and the hope that we aren't our limitations, and that we can really fulfill our destiny, and to do what we were put here to do on this planet. So, 4A.
Hi, everybody. I've been asked to share a song, which I also consider a prayer in the way of offering hope or intention. It's prayer for unity, considering that we're all connected, we are all one. And I think it goes well with what we're going to be hearing from Reverend Scott. So here's my song prayer. I sing it when I'm in the woods. It came to me when I was walking in the woods, and I've been singing it in the woods ever since. May I know me, may I see me, may I be me, may I love me, may you know you, may you be you, may you see you, may you love you. May I know you, may I see you, may I be you, may I love you, may you know me, may you see me, may you be me, may you love me. May we know May we see, may we be, may we love, may we know. May we see, may we be, may we love. Thank you.
Julia, thank you. That was just gorgeous. And now we get a chance to sing together one of my favorite hymns. How could anyone ever tell you you're anything less than beautiful? We'll do this 3 times. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you, Mark. Okay, here's the scenario. An epic drought devastates the agriculture in California. Water use is rationed, so the cost of grain goes up. And because cattle eat grain, the cost of beef goes up too. So to cut expenses, the owners of a fast food restaurant cut a worker's wages and benefits by a couple bucks an hour. Next month, because of this, he won't be able to send money to his wife and kids back in Mexico, where the same drought is also decimating farms and contributing to more northward migration. Kristen Moe shares this scenario in a recent copy of Yes Magazine, and then wonders, where is it then, the origin of the restaurant workers' predicament? Is it climate change, which makes the droughts more severe and more likely to persist? Is it the labor practices that allowed the workers' wages to be cut? Or is it NAFTA, which has flooded the Mexican market with cheap US-grown corn since 1996, which forced him to leave his family's farm and migrate to California in the first place? Which caused the wages to be cut? Well, obviously there's no one single thing. The answer, it was likely a bit of everything. And this kind of multi-dimensional thinking and getting away from one-dimensional thinking is what we call intersectionality. It's a way of thinking holistically about how different forms of oppressions and how different identities combined into something much more complex. Kimberly Crenshaw, a law professor at UCLA and Columbia University, first coined this term intersectionality in a legal article she published in 1989, about 30 years ago. In the article, she tried to contextualize a 1964 lawsuit against General Motors, in which 5 Black women sued for discrimination. They said that they were prohibited from working in the factory because those were jobs for Black men. And they were prohibited from working in the office because those were jobs for white women. And in the end, the workers' case was dismissed because the discrimination that they faced didn't apply equally to all women or all Black people. It only applied to Black women. And so for Crenshaw, it also revealed this larger pattern that individuals have multiple identities, and the oppression that they experience is in fact an interaction of all the different identities that they hold at the same time. She said what Black women already knew to be true, that you can't tease these different identities apart, that each one of us is complex, and each of us are the sum of all of our different identities. And so I'd like for you now just to consider and think about all the different identities that you hold. Some of these identities might offer you privilege, and some of these identities might cause marginalization in your life. And so I'd like to invite us, Jonathan, to reopen the chat box. And I'm just curious to hear some of the identities that we hold in this congregation. I find sometimes hearing other people reflect on their identities can remind me of identities that I hold that I might not have thought about. And so we'll open the chat, and if you're willing, just share an identity that you hold. Mark Hickman went first and said nerd. Thanks, Mark. We're glad you're a nerd, Mark. A middle child. A teaching artist. A loving mom who's always there. A vegan. Bilingual. An only child. Daughter has now given away to other family identities, sister and aunt. A single mother. A cheerleader. Older than 35. A Texan. Woo! A ranger. Older than 60. An unwed mother. A mentor, a tea drinker, an oldest child. Oma, a grandmother, and a youngest child, a woodworker. An aspiring writer, a baker, a composer, a singer, divorced, an astronomy buff. So we could go on because each of us holds many identities. For me, I'm a male, I'm a father, I identify as white, I identify as a Unitarian Universalist, a brother, a third son, a hiker. All of these things make up the complexity of what I am. And I'm not always holding them in the same moment, though they are a part of my life. The concept of intersectionality has evolved and broadened from just recognizing our own personal multiple identities, but also the idea of societal problems are also intersectional. Things like poverty, environmental catastrophes, healthcare, mass incarceration, immigrant and refugee crisis, all of these things are intersectional. And so as we work toward common causes, this diversity of viewpoints brings something greater into work than what individuals could do alone. And we work for causes outside of our own apparent immediate interest because of this idea of collective liberation. We understand that our liberation is tied up with the liberation of all people. In the poem Now, Stephen Schick writes, "Don't tell me that it's not time to care for the young just because you're old. Don't tell me that now is not the time to care for the elderly just because you're young. Don't tell me that now is not the time to feed my baby just because you're not hungry. Don't tell me that now is not the time to go to the hospital just because you're feeling fine. Don't tell me that now is not the time to buy books just because you've read yours. And don't tell me that now is not the time to open the shelter just because you have a home. Don't tell me that now is not the time to hire just because your investments are weak. And don't tell me that now is not the time to build bridges just because you have crossed over." There are examples of this kind of intersectionality thinking all throughout history. Frederick Douglass, an African-American born into slavery in the early 19th century, escaped and became a leader in the African-American movement. He was known for his skills at public speaking, and if he had only offered his skills to racial equality, that would have been enough. But he understood, looking beyond his own self-interest, to work for the freedom of all people. And so the Seneca Falls Convention was the first women's rights convention in the United States. It was held in 1848 in New York. And the meeting launched the women's suffrage movement that would 7 decades later ensure that women had the right to vote. So Frederick Douglass was one of only 31 men who attended this early women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, and he was the only man invited to speak. And later, near the end of his life, he said, "When I ran away from slavery, it was for myself. When I advocated emancipation, it was for my people. But when I stood up for the rights of women, self was out of questions, and I found a little bit of nobility in the act." Douglass reminds us that when we witness for the rights of others, when we advocate for the inherent worth and dignity of those people who are not ourselves, we are also experiencing the inherent worth and dignity of our own self. There's a movie on Netflix right now, Judas and the Black Messiah. Well, Huey Newton was the African-American co-founder of the Black Panthers. And he said, "When we have revolutionary conferences, rallies, and demonstrations, there should be full participation of the gay liberation movement and of the women's liberation movement." As Dr. King challenges us to remember in his letter from the Birmingham jail, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Until we are all free, none of us free. I thought Martin Luther King Jr. had said those words because they hold so close to the injustice everywhere as a threat to justice anywhere. But until we are all free, we are none of us free, was written by an American poet named Emma Lazarus. You might not know her poetry, but you probably know a couple lines from one of her famous sonnets, The New Colossus. She writes, "Give me your tired, your poor, and your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Emma Lazarus was a wealthy fourth-generation American who was a teenager in New York during the Civil War. And when she saw 2,000 Jewish refugees begin pouring into the city during the 1880s from Russia, her eyes were opened to the plight of Jews around the world, and she became the first American writer to speak out publicly against anti-Semitism. She wasn't Jewish, but she became an advocate and an ally. Until we are all free, we are none of us free. This reminds me of those words by the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller. He was writing about the cowardice of the German intellectuals and certain clergy following the Nazis' rise to power. And he wrote, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." We attempt to speak out against justice wherever it's found. This intersectional approach to organizing sounds a lot like beloved community that we lift up and uphold in our Unitarian Universalist principles. We have this vision of democracy and justice and diversity. Specifically, we recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every single person while also respecting the interconnected web of existence, which means this diversity of experience and skill and interest. We believe in justice and equity and compassion and human relations, along with the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. We have this goal of world peace and liberty and justice for all that at its core understands that justice seeking is a mutual endeavor. And this is why our congregation does this as well. The social justice programs in this congregation are wide and diverse. We understand this collective liberation, this mutuality of justice making involves each of us in projects that might not be in our direct self-interest, but when we understand that our self-interest is tied with every single other human in the world, tied in a fabric of destiny. We do it all at once. And sometimes it can get messy, and sometimes it can get confusing, and sometimes it can feel like a lot. But that is the justice work that we are called to. Complex work. Because we are complex people with complex identities living in a complex world. I'm reminded of these words by Mark Morrison Reed, who reminds us of what it is we offer one another in a religious community. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amidst the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. And once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. And the religious community is essential. For alone, our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. But together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. This is the work we are called to do, and we are called to do it together, inherently, with one another, for the world around us, as we are a part of that world ourselves. We do this work together. We do it imperfectly, we do it messy, but we do it together because our religious faith calls us to the work of justice, to the work of aiding our fellow humans in a hard and complex intersectional world. It is a blessing to do this work with one another in our world. May it be so this day and every day. Amen.
Our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home, reminds us all that our fundamental intersection is we share a planet together. This is our path to be together on the blue boat of Earth. Please join the UUFCO Quartet in singing Blue Boat Home.
Chayla mentioned earlier during our announcements that today is the last Sunday in the month, GCC, the Greater Community Collection. And so today we're collecting for the MRG Foundation. On May 31st, 2019, the Tribal Council of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs approved an emergency disaster declaration due to an immediate health threats resulting from a water line break. Because of public utilities, capital maintenance deferment over the past few decades, today, over a year into rolling water outages and a boil water notice across Oregon's largest reservation, there's still no end in sight. And so the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs is partnering with the MRG Foundation to directly benefit the work to restore their access and infrastructure for clean water. We have a brief video from this foundation to share a little bit more about this project.
Access to clean water is directly related to having an adequate standard of living and overall health. Today in my community of Warm Springs, over 60% of the people do not have access to clean and safe running water for personal and domestic use. The system that delivers water throughout the community has mainline breaks, and as a result, there's low or no pressure in the system, and everyone has to boil water. While water distribution centers are available in the community, my family are challenged to follow CDC guidelines for hand washing to protect themselves from COVID. Low pressure in the system means people cannot shower, wash dishes, do laundry, or provide water to livestock and animals. This is why we need your help. To fix our entire water infrastructure system, it will cost over $200 million. You can donate directly to the MRG Foundation, our partner in raising funds to address critical issues. Visit them at mrgfoundation.org. Chush, or water, is life. It is central to my people and our cultural lifeways. We pray with it and for it. It flows through our bodies as it flows through the lands. Like you, we can't live without it.
So again, all of our offering today will go toward the MRG Foundation and to support the work at the Warm Springs Reservation. We'll put up some information on how to give during Peggy's postlude, and we'll invite you to stay after our service for our virtual coffee hour. And we're just going to continue that conversation and ask, what's an identity that you hold that has shaped your life in some way? So I'll invite you to, if you have lit a chalice at home, I'll invite you to extinguish that now. As we say together, the covenant of this fellowship. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So go into this day holding and honoring all of your different identities, understanding that we are part of a complex world and we need all of your identities because that makes up exactly who you are. Go into this day. Go with peace in your heart, with justice for your hands, and the knowledge that you indeed are loved.